Hey guys, tonight we're stepping barefoot into the freezing, creaky world of 18th century rural Russia, where your breath curls like ghost smoke in the air, and your only chance at surviving the day is sweating. Yes, sweating. Because in this particular little snow-bitten corner of the world, there's a building that steams even in blizzards, and the locals believe it cures everything from heartbreak to plague boils. It's called a banya, a rustic bathhouse, where people do things to their bodies that most modern spas would get sued for. You're about to spend a day inside this peculiar world where you'll be roasted, whipped, boiled, frozen, slapped with branches, possibly hallucinate a spirit or two, and then crawl home feeling like you just survived something heroic. Spoiler alert, you probably wouldn't. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is over there. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake before dawn under a heap of furs that smell like wet wolf and pine sap. Your fingers are stiff, your breath visible, and the single window of your wooden shack is etched with a rime so thick it looks like lace. Every plank groans. Somewhere outside a rooster crows, not proudly, but like he's questioning his life choices. You tug on wool socks that feel like they were made from barbed wire, jam your feet into boots that might as well be frozen bread loaves, and step out into a world that is more snow than earth. You don't need to check the temperature. You feel it in your molars, somewhere around -20 Celsius, maybe -30. Either way, your eyelashes are trying to freeze together. Everything around you is white and gray, as though the world's been erased. The village is small, maybe 30 people in total, but as your boots crunch through snowdrifts, you notice something odd. Nearly every house has a smaller smoke-belching shed attached to it or nearby. You already know what it is. It's the banya. You smell the birch smoke before you see the door. No one talks much in the morning here. Everyone's moving slow like creatures made of wet wool. But there's one goal shared by all: get warm. And in this part of Russia, that doesn't mean tea or blankets. It means steam, blistering, face-melting steam, and possibly getting whacked with a tree branch. You pass a boy carrying a bucket of frozen water, the surface glinting like obsidian. He nods. You nod. That's about all the socializing anyone has energy for before the first banya session of the day. Banya culture isn't just about hygiene, which, let's be honest, wasn't always a high priority in 18th century Europe. It was a philosophy, a therapy, a spiritual war against both nature and your own weak flesh. Russians believed the power steam had the power to purge not just toxins, but sins, sadness, and possibly your ex's bad karma. And so you find yourself outside the village communal banya, a squat timber structure blackened by years of smoke and soot. Icicles hang from the roof like fangs. Inside, you hear the familiar crackle of logs and the occasional thump of someone slipping on wet wood. You duck through the low door and are hit with a wave of thick, wet air that smells like pine needles, sweat, and faintly cooked onions. Welcome to warmth. Your fingers start to tingle painfully as they defrost. Someone hands you a strip of linen and a bundle of branches. No one needs to explain. You know the drill. Strip down, yes, everything, and brace yourself. There's a peculiar blend of calm and urgency in the air. Like everyone agrees this is necessary for survival, but also that it should be done with sacred respect. In the corner, an old man is meditating with a birch switch on his lap, like a monk with a sword. Steam curls around him like a genie waiting to be unleashed. Historians still argue whether this obsessive love of steam was born from necessity or belief, or both. In a land this cold, heating water was a luxury. Why waste it on individual bathing when you could transform a single room into a temple of heat? But it wasn't just about being warm. The Russians genuinely believed the banya could treat everything. Colds, toothaches, infidelity, you name it, someone's tried to sweat it out. Quirky side note, some villagers refused to sleep under the same roof unless a banya session had taken place within 24 hours. They'd rather risk wolves than go to bed dirty in the soul. You inch closer to the stone furnace at the heart of the room, called a kamenka. It's buried under rocks the size of cabbages, heated until glowing. A ladle of water sizzles on contact, and the room suddenly erupts in hissing, swirling white fog. You inhale. It's like breathing soup. And just as your ears start to thaw and your mind begins to drift into that lazy state of half-sleep, someone behind you claps a wet hand on your shoulder. "Get ready," they mutter. You barely have time to brace yourself before the birch whipping begins. You flinch instinctively as the first whap lands across your shoulders. It's not painful, at least not yet, but it is startling. The venik, that bundle of leafy birch branches, lands again, this time with more intention. The leaves are still damp, slightly warm from soaking. Each strike releases tiny gusts of aromatic oils, earthy and sharp, mingling with the pine-scented steam. Someone behind you hums softly, not a tune exactly, more like the sound of effort and tradition passed down through sore arms. You sit hunched on the highest bench where the heat hits hardest, your skin prickling with the kind of warmth that flirts with combustion. This is the second most sacred spot in the banya, just under the stones themselves. Up here the air hangs heavier, and even blinking feels like a full-body effort. Every villager has their own theory on how long to stay. The bold say you must wait until you hallucinate your ancestors. The more cautious just aim to sweat through their third layer of shame. And you're somewhere in the middle, dizzy, drenched, but oddly euphoric. Your bones feel like jelly filled with sunlight. Outside, the village stirs to life. Smoke rises from chimneys like slow gray banners of surrender. Chickens peck at frozen dirt, and a dog barks half-heartedly at a snowdrift. But in here, time has gone soft. Only the hiss of steam and the slap of venik branches measure the minutes. You glance around and realize you're not alone in your suffering. A grandmother sits calmly by the furnace, her face beatific, as though being slowly steamed like a dumpling is her preferred state of existence. Nearby, a pair of brothers slap each other's backs with the enthusiasm of men settling old scores. Everyone glistens, everyone glows. The walls sweat too. They drip from every joint, every knot in the wood. It's said these banyas are built with no nails, just careful joinery, thick logs, and ancestral secrets. Some believe that metal disrupts the spiritual flow of steam. Historians still argue whether that's mystical nonsense or a clever way to avoid rust. Your eyes wander to a shelf in the corner, stacked with odd supplies. A jar of honey, a wedge of salt, a hunk of black bread, and of course a bottle of vodka wrapped in burlap, as if modesty still applies here. These are not snacks, these are tools. One man dips his fingers into the honey and rubs it across his chest with priestly reverence. Another sprinkles salt on his forearms and grits his teeth against the sting. These rituals are meant to cleanse the body, draw out bad humors, open the pores, and maybe distract from the fact that it's still 25 degrees outside. The door creaks open suddenly, and in tumbles a child no older than 8, escorted by a toothless uncle. They're both naked except for woolen hats. The boy looks terrified, the man jubilant. This is his grandson's first real banya, a rite of passage. Everyone nods solemnly. The boy will remember this forever, either as a spiritual awakening or a vivid reason to never trust his grandfather again. It's easy to laugh, but deep down you get it. There's a rhythm here, a shared insanity that binds the village. You start to feel it too, that looseness in your joints, the deep pulsing behind your eyes that says something ancient is waking up. Or maybe you're just slightly dehydrated. Mainstream historians agree that banyas played a crucial role in Russian rural health. In places with limited access to doctors, the banya became a cure-all. If you were sick, you went in. If you were pregnant, you gave birth in there. If someone died, you washed the body in the steam. The banya was life's warm, wet waiting room. Quirky tidbit: some villagers would hold weddings in the banya. Nothing says eternal love like sweating next to your in-laws in a room that smells like old trees and regret. And here's something even more peculiar: people use the banya to test for witchcraft. If you could sit through 3 full rounds of par without flinching, you were probably a witch. Or just stubborn. If you fled screaming well, you were weak. Or worse, foreign. Your thoughts are interrupted by the sound of another ladle full of water hitting the stones. The hiss is so loud it sounds like a dragon exhaling. You flinch and your skin erupts in fresh sweat. Someone pours a shot of vodka into your cupped hands. You down it without hesitation. It burns less than the air in here. The boy next to you starts to giggle deliriously, maybe. You smile. His first steam madness. A beautiful milestone. Then, as if summoned by your smirk, the old man with the Venic returns. He gestures for you to lie face down on the wooden bench. You obey because that's what you do in a banya. You obey the steam, the wood, the rhythm. And just as you press your cheek to the hot board, he raises the branches again. Whap, 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 whap. The rhythm sets in, not violent but vigorous. The birch branches dance across your back, their soft leaves sticking, dragging, brushing. It's like being patted down by a very determined tree. The scent of the leaves fills your nose, sharp, green, and somehow clean. They've been soaked just long enough to be pliable, not brittle. It's almost tender, almost. Your pores open like panicked windows. Sweat gushes out in rivers, collecting in your eyebrows and sliding down your cheeks like tears from a confused saint. You're not even sure whose legs those are anymore. They look like boiled sausages. Everything feels soft, weightless. There's a high-pitched ringing in your ears that might be enlightenment or blood pressure. The kamenka flares again and the wave of heat crashes over you like a wet towel fresh from an oven. Steam fills every inch of space, making the wood groan in protest. Someone nearby moans, not in pain, but like they've just had a really good stretch. You could cry. You probably will. Banyas, you've come to learn, aren't just built for heat. They're engineered. The best Perilka's steam rooms use a very specific sequence: cold water over lava-hot stones, with just enough delay to build suspense. The ceiling must be low to trap heat, the benches tiered like a sweaty amphitheater, and the airflow so perfectly restricted that even opening the door feels like sacrilege. Historians still debate who perfected the Russian banya. Some point to Slavic tribes, others to Mongol influence, and a few fringe scholars suggest that ancient Scandinavian steam huts might have inspired it. Wherever it came from, the design stuck because nothing else worked quite like it. You glance at the wooden walls again. No insulation, just logs. Yet it holds heat, like a bear holds grudges. Now someone's pouring Kvass, a kind of low-alcohol fermented bread drink, over the stones. It sizzles, filling the room with the strangest smell: hot yeast, sour grains, and something vaguely metallic. Supposedly this improves circulation, or maybe it's just a prank no one ever admits. At your feet lies the next ritual tool, the Venic. But this one isn't birch, it's oak. Tougher, broader leaves, a little more bite. Someone presses it into your back and leaves it there like a warm compress made by elves. The oils soak into your skin. You feel like stew. By now your thoughts are distant. You drift somewhere between waking and hallucination. You remember that joke about Russian banyas being slow saunas that turn men into soup. It doesn't feel like a joke anymore. You are soup. Your meat and your muscles are falling off the bone. The banya elder calls for the next round. This time juniper, a few needles in the mix. Tiny stings, barely noticeable, but enough to wake you just when you start to drift. It's their version of a caffeine hit. You sit up, blinking through fog. Everyone else is beet red, glistening eyes half closed in bliss or delirium. There's a bucket of cold water nearby. One man grabs it and without warning dumps it over his head. The sound is like a punch. He yells. Everyone claps politely as if he's just completed a piano recital. That's the thing here. Pain is performance. Quirky tidbit. Some villages held banya contests, endurance tests. Who could stay in the heat longest, or withstand the sharpest Venic switch without flinching? The winners got respect. The losers got teased until next winter. Your turn comes. You stagger out of the steam and into the predbonic, the outer chamber still warm but not blistering. Your lungs do a double take. Is this what air feels like? A rough towel is thrust at you. You wipe your face and sit on a wooden bench, still steaming like fresh bread. Someone offers you a garlic clove. You take it. It's supposed to protect you from illness, evil spirits, and annoying relatives. Whether it works is debatable. Whether it makes you smell like a soup pot is not. There's a strange comfort here. The banya strips away everything, clothes, vanity, pretense. You're all just human meatbags, sharing heat, grunting through detox and hoping to avoid passing out. And it works. Somehow, you feel lighter, quieter. You overhear someone explaining the ideal number of rounds, 3, inside with cold plunges between. No more, no less, he says, like it's scripture. Otherwise, the spirits get confused. Yes, spirits. Because, of course, banyas have ghosts, not spooky chain rattlers. More like ancestral steam beings who emerge in the haze, whisper old advice, and judge your technique. Some villagers talk to them. Others leave offerings, a coin in the ashes, a curl of birch bark, a sliver of salted fish. Just in case. And you're starting to believe. As you prepare for your second round, someone taps your shoulder. It's the boy from earlier. He looks exhausted but proud. His grandfather nods. He survived the first sweat, he says. You offer a fist bump. The boy looks confused but bumps back. The sacred traditions are evolving. You re-enter the steam towel slung over your shoulder, Venic in hand. The stones are glowing again, red and ready. Someone lifts the ladle, and so the next wave begins. You settle back onto the upper bench, now so familiar, it's practically furniture in your memory palace. Your skin sighs at the return of the heat, not in relief, but in recognition, like an old friend sliding into an uncomfortable embrace. A deep hiss fills the room as another ladle of water splashes the kamenka, and the steam rolls in thick and fast, wrapping itself around your neck like a slightly judgmental scarf. Behind you, a man grunts and begins the Venic ceremony anew. But this time it's not just any man, it's Pavel. Pavel the butcher, Pavel the undisputed champion of Venic technique. You've heard stories. He once made a grown man cry from just the rhythm. Some say he studied under a blind hermit who could exfoliate demons. You brace yourself. The first strike lands light, rhythmic, almost musical. Then comes the second, faster, then the third, and suddenly you're inside a percussion concert, scored entirely for Birch and Skin. It's not painful exactly, but it's intense. You start sweating before your brain registers it. You grip the bench. You surrender. Thwap, whap, whisper, whap. The sound blends with the crackling of the furnace. And now your mind starts drifting again somewhere beyond pain and pride into a kind of bizarre bliss. This is no longer just heat therapy. This is ritual. This is a purification trial by firewood. What most don't realize is that these beatings aren't random. There's a technique. You start from the limbs, draw the heat inward toward the core, then the back, then a gentle press across the chest, like a smoky blessing. Some Banyaskiki steam masters even whisper charms as they beat, mixing folklore with blood circulation. Historians still argue whether this birch whipping started as a medical treatment or a deeply spiritual rite. Some say it dates back to pre-Christian purification rituals. Others suggest it evolved from punishment practices that people decided to rebrand as invigorating. Either way, you're lying there getting rhythmically thwacked by a man who smells like smoked pork and destiny. And weirdly, you're not mad about it. Pavel pauses. Flip, he commands. You flip. This part's even weirder, the face and belly. More delicate skin. Some say it opens emotional blockages. Others say it just prepares you for the cold shock that comes next. Ah, yes, the cold shock. You forgot about that part. Someone opens the banya door and a gust of icy air floods in. You instinctively curl your toes, but there's no escape. You are dragged gently, ceremoniously out into the snow. Your foot hits the first drift like it's stepping into glass. Your brain screams, your skin tightens so hard it could snap. And then you start laughing. Everyone does. It's not even voluntary. It's the kind of primal, high-pitched bark of laughter that only comes when your nervous system has fully checked out. Quirky side note, Russian nobles used to jump into frozen rivers after banyas, not for Instagram clout, but because they believed the shock locked in the health benefits. Some claimed it even improved fertility. Others just liked watching their enemies scream. You meanwhile roll around in the snow like a rotisserie chicken, having an existential crisis. The contrast is electric. You feel awake, alive, possibly insane. Back in the Predbonic, people sip Kvass or vodka and slap each other on the back with steam-slicked palms. The fire crackles, socks are wrung out. Someone sings a folk song that's mostly vowels. Then comes the third round, the final sweat. You re-enter the heat slower this time, like someone entering church or approaching an emotional ex. You're not cocky anymore. You respect the banya. You fear it a little. It has revealed your weaknesses. It has cooked your ego like a potato, and yet you love it. There's a communal silence now, no more jokes, just the hiss, the slap, the breath. It's meditative, monastic, if a monk were also mildly drunk and extremely flushed. Mainstream records from the 1700s show that Russian doctors often prescribed banya treatments instead of herbal remedies. Some even developed elaborate charts showing how different steam temperatures affected melancholic or sanguine personalities. One physician insisted that regular steamings could prevent gout cure, bad temper, and even ward off unruly dreams. You can see why. You've lost track of your worries. You've sweated out every negative thought you've ever had. You're a blank page, a noodle in the soup of history. Pavel approaches again, brandishing another bundle of birch. But this time, it's not to beat. He simply lays it on your chest, a crown of leaves for the conquered. It's a small gesture, but somehow it feels sacred. You close your eyes. The heat softens, the steam thins, the fire dims, and you, somewhere between myth and muscle ache, begin to drift. You wake with a start, still horizontal, the scent of birch leaves crumpled on your chest. Your skin tingles like it's made of static. Your breath comes slow and thick, like the air is syrup. Someone's gently nudging your shoulder. It's Svetlana, the village herbalist, or maybe she's just the nosiest neighbor who knows how to make tea out of anything. Hard to say. Either way, she's holding out a clay cup filled with something dark and steaming. Drink, she says with authority that doesn't invite questions. You do. It tastes like boiled forest floor with notes of bark and mystery. Supposedly, it's infused with yarrow chamomile and crushed juniper berries. Great for your blood, or your dreams, or both. You sit up slowly. Around you, the banya has shifted into its recovery phase. Bodies wrapped in linen towels sprawl like melted wax figurines on benches. Conversations murmur like distant bees. The steam is lighter now, gentler, almost reflective. And that's when the debates begin. As always, the vodka comes out first. Small glasses. Toasts with more emotion than grammar. And then come the remedies, the things people swear by. Garlic rubbed on your soles. Onion slices tucked behind your ears. Vodka inhaled through a damp rag. There's even a man swearing that if you place raw beetroot in your armpits, you'll never catch a cold again. This is where science and folklore dance their strange waltz. Historians still argue whether these remedies evolved from practical survival strategies or were just the best guesses passed down by grandmothers who had seen too much. The line between superstition and frontier medicine is thin, especially in a country where winter can kill you quicker than any war. Svetlana leans closer. "You need garlic in your socks," she whispers conspiratorially. It draws out the fear. You don't argue. She's already tucking cloves in like they're smuggling secrets. Outside, the world remains frozen and bright. But in here, your body pulses like an ember. You are officially cooked. If anyone knocked on the banya door right now and said dinner's ready, someone might plate you. Then the door swings open again and a gust of air slices in. A new group shuffles in, 3 hunters, a goat herder, and a babushka with a demeanor that suggests she's here to fix everyone's posture. They're loud, rowdy, still dusted in snow. The room stirs back to life. And suddenly it's your turn to help. You're handed a venik. The others part slightly, all eyes on you. Apparently this is how they test if the steam has entered your bones. If you can whip, you are one with the heat. If you flinch or hesitate back to the bottom bench, you go. You rise. Your hand trembles slightly as you raise the leafy switch. The hunter lays face down, muttering a half-serious prayer. You begin. The first few strikes are cautious, light, but then instinct kicks in. Rhythm finds you. Whap, whap, whisper, whap. You can almost hear the steam humming approval. And with every motion you realize this isn't just exfoliation. It's communication, a way to say you're still alive, you matter, we survived another winter's morning together. Quirky fact. In some remote villages, it was considered rude not to offer a beating after your own steam session, like forgetting to return a borrowed bowl. Steam hospitality, they called it. You finish your set to nods of mild respect. You're not Pavel, but you didn't drop the venik, and no one cried. That's basically certification. The babushka pats your elbow. You're ready for garlic onion tea now, she says. You laugh. She doesn't. The next few hours drift by in a haze of salt rubs, whispered charms, and increasingly bizarre theories about bodily balance. Someone insists standing on one leg in the banya cures back pain. Another says chanting old Slavic wedding songs helps with fertility. You try both, just in case. And through it all, one truth remains: they believe in this. Deeply. Fiercely. The banya isn't a luxury, it's a necessity, a therapy, a community center, a confessional booth, a place to sweat out not just dirt and sickness, but stories. It's no coincidence that in 18th century Russia, medical practitioners often used banyas as their first line of treatment. Even without understanding bacteria, people noticed the cleaner you were, the less you died. The warmer you stayed, the fewer limbs you lost to frost. Even broken hearts seemed to mend faster after a steam. You watch as Svetlana begins a ritual of her own, holding her hands over the stove and murmuring something you can't quite catch. She touches her chest, then her forehead, then the wall. A prayer, a spell, maybe both. The afternoon light shifts slightly through the tiny high window. Outside, the snow continues to fall. Time has lost all urgency. You feel for the first time in months absolutely clean, inside and out. By now, your skin glows like varnished wood, and your muscles feel like they've been replaced with warm pudding. The world has softened. No sharp corners, no hard thoughts, just heat and hush. You're halfway into a nap on the lowest bench when the banya door creaks open and an unmistakable voice booms in from the cold. It's Anya, Anya the widow, Anya the legend. A woman who once steamed for 9 hours straight and emerged to bake a full batch of rye bread without blinking. Nobody knows how old she is. Some say she was born in a banya and never truly left. She walks in with the swagger of a war general and a towel the size of a sail. Her hair is wrapped in a turban of damp linen, and in her hand is a clay jar, her personal blend of herbs and soot, which she swears can banish ailments and demons. Possibly the same thing. I feel the pain coming back, she announces. Time to sweat it out. No one questions her. She has gout in both knees, a hip that clicks like a metronome, and still moves with the confidence of a woman who once out-sauna'd 3 Cossacks and a bear, allegedly. She settles on the top bench and motions for steam. Give me all of it. Someone ladles water over the stones. The hiss is immediate, volcanic. The room erupts in a fresh fog, thick and blinding. Anya inhales deeply, then lets out a moan so guttural it might have scared away a few local spirits. You scoot over, trying not to melt into the wall, and watch as her ritual begins. She dips her fingers into the jar, ash-dried mint-fermented horse sorrel, maybe some powdered bone, and begins rubbing it into her elbows, her knees, even behind her ears. The joints must know fear, she says cryptically. Quirky banya belief. Some villagers genuinely thought you could steam out curses. That illnesses weren't always caused by nature, but by envy, by lies, by spirits with nothing better to do. The solution: sweat until they leave. Your sickness is in your second skin, Anya mutters. That's where it hides. You must drive it out. And you watch, fascinated, skeptical, mildly concerned, as she begins to hum. Not a song, a vibration, low, constant, like the stove itself has developed a soul. The others join in, not singing but resonating, a kind of communal tone bath. The sound vibrates through the wood into your ribs. You're not entirely sure you're still awake. This is steam as exorcism. Historians still argue whether these banya-based spirit-purging rituals were rooted in indigenous animism or just creative interpretations of orthodox purification rites. But they existed, recorded in diaries, travelogues, and the occasional scandalous sermon. Back in your current time loop of sweating, you notice Anya's skin beginning to glisten like river stone. Her eyes are closed. She's somewhere else now, possibly in a conversation with her ancestors, possibly just meditating on how much her knees hurt. Then, as the steam thickens, she begins to speak. I saw him again, she whispers. Everyone leans in. This isn't unusual. Anya's visions are part of village lore. He was in the steam, my Ivan, her dead husband, lost 15 years ago to a bear attack or pneumonia or both. It depends on who tells the story. Either way, Anya's been seeing him ever since. But only in the banya. He says to stop eating the pickled eggs, she adds solemnly. They block the healing. You nod. Because what else do you do? More steam. The walls drip. Your fingertips tingle again. You lie back. Let the heat fold over you like a soft boiling blanket. Around you others are silent, breathing in sync. Even the furnace seems to calm. Mainstream medicine scoffs at spiritual sweating. But even modern therapists admit people need rituals. They need places to let go, to believe in something bigger than the ache in their joints. Whether it's ghosts or gut bacteria, the end result's the same. People leave the banya feeling lighter. The session ends when Anya claps twice. Sharp, loud. Everyone flinches. The spell breaks. Enough, she says. You follow the group out into the snow once more, dazed and blinking. This time the cold feels less hostile, almost friendly. Like a handshake from the world reminding you that yes, your pores are wide open, and yes, your senses are firing on all cylinders. Back in the dressing room, people towel off, sip broth, slap each other's shoulders, and share stories. You hear tales of children born in banyas who grew up immune to frostbite, of men who never caught a fever after weekly sweats, of a woman who walked again after 20 years claiming the steam unlocked her bones. You ask Anya if she really saw Ivan. She looks at you long and steady. "I see a lot in the steam," she says. "What's real is what heals." She pats your cheek with a hand that smells like mint and charcoal, and just like that she's gone vanishing into the snow like some ancient spirit made of towel and stubbornness. You exhale. The steam may be fading from your skin, but something else, something older, is still buzzing beneath. You're back inside the banya, drying near the glowing coals, when another figure enters, this one dressed oddly enough in a heavy wool coat. No sweat, no towel, no flask of garlic tea. Instead, he carries a leather satchel, and he walks with the pomp of someone used to being obeyed. He's a doctor, or at least that's what the villagers call him. You've heard about this one, Mikhail Petrovich, the semi-official healer of 3 surrounding villages. He studied in St. Petersburg for exactly 1 winter, then returned claiming that cities were full of filth and lies, and only steam could save Russia's soul. He opens his satchel, pulls out a bundle of dried herbs, a sliver of soap the color of swamp water, and a wooden spoon with something gloopy in it. 3 treatments today, he announces. Fatigue of the lungs, sorrow of the gut, and bad dreams. You blink. Did he just say sorrow of the gut? Yes. Apparently that's a real thing. Caused by grief, poor soup, and idle gossip. The cure: steam fermented beet juice and being beaten with wormwood. Quirky, yes, but in a strange way this patchwork approach makes sense. When your winters are 8 months long and your diet is mostly potatoes and prayers, you start inventing solutions. Mikhail begins his rounds. He asks no questions. He simply examines a man's earlobes, sniffs a woman's breath, and declares diagnoses like he's reading from a sacred scroll. "You have melancholy of the liver," he tells one man. "Drink boiled birch water and sing to it first." You half expect him to ask someone to hum at a spoon. Historians still argue whether Russian village medicine in the 1700s was primarily herbal, magical, or improvisational nonsense, but many agree the banya gave local healers a controlled environment, clean, warm, communal, where treatments could actually work, or at least seem to work, which, as Mikhail might say, is half the battle. Your turn comes. He looks at you, squints, and raises a brow. Too much thinking. Your spirit is overheating. You nod solemnly. It's hard to argue with. He dips his spoon into the gloopy mix. It smells like pine tar and fermented berries, and dabs it onto your temples. "Don't wipe it off," he warns. "It needs to absorb the nonsense." Then he hands you a small knotted pouch of herbs and gestures to a bucket of hot water. "Steep this. Bathe your feet in it while whispering secrets." "Secrets, you ask?" "Anything you wouldn't say to a priest," he says, already moving on to the next patient. So you sit, feet in the bucket, inhaling steam, murmuring confessions like "I once lied about catching a fish. I think garlic makes me gag. I find snow deeply suspicious," and somehow it works. You feel lighter, more absurd, less entangled with yourself. The rest of the session unfolds in a haze of rituals: dried chamomile pressed into your scalp, juniper oil massaged into your forearms, hot stones placed between your toes like tiny volcanic pets. Meanwhile, Mikhail lectures the room on how steam teaches the blood to be polite. He insists that heated breath can align your bones, that certain herbs sing in boiling water, and that birch sap applied to the navel can prevent betrayal. No one questions him. They nod, sip broth, and pass the vodka. Mainstream historical records from this era describe traveling healers, much like Mikhail, equal parts doctor, mystic, and folklore librarian. They were revered, mocked, feared, and relied upon. Some blended Orthodox prayers with pagan remedies. Some just made it up as they went. Mikhail finishes his rounds with a sermon on intestinal sadness, warning that if left untreated, it can turn your soul upside down and make you dream of pigs. A woman crosses herself. A child giggles. You cough politely to mask your own laugh. As the steam thins again and the logs collapse into ember, Mikhail rises. Remember, he says, health is not just what's missing, it's what you add back in. And with that he packs his satchel, downs a shot of vodka without blinking, and disappears into the snow. Someone murmurs, "We'll see him again next thaw." You lean back against the warm wall, pulse slow, brain soup. Mikhail's mix still tingles on your skin. Was any of it real? Did it matter? Because right now, with your feet hot, your lungs clear, and your secrets whispered into the steam, you feel more healed than you've felt in years. You're sitting outside the banya now, cheeks blazing, hair damp and heavy, wrapped in a too-short towel that smells like juniper and effort. It's late morning, maybe early afternoon. You've lost all sense of time, which feels perfectly appropriate. Around you, the snow continues to fall with all the urgency of molasses. The sky is a dull gray, the kind that promises more snow tomorrow. And the only thing louder than your heartbeat is the rhythmic thud of hooves. A sleigh approaches, pulled by a pair of shaggy white horses that look like they were knitted out of storm clouds. Riding high on the bench is Yuri, the local nobleman's steward, grinning like someone who just received a very expensive bribe. "You," he says, pointing at you. "You've been invited." "Invited to what?" "To the Tsar's steam palace." "Of course, why not?" "Apparently word of your Venic skills has spread faster than a gossip in spring, and now the minor nobility wants to see for themselves whether this new village banya master can handle real heat." You climb aboard the sleigh with all the grace of a boiled cabbage. The wind stings your face, but you don't care. You're wrapped in furs brimming with mineral broth and glowing like a bonfire. The ride takes you uphill through pine forests dusted like cake tops, until you reach a grand stone estate with onion domes, gilded doors, and there it is, a marble-walled structure puffing steam into the sky like a smug volcano. Welcome to the estate banya. Inside, everything smells richer. There are scented towels, silver ladles, soap that doesn't resemble coal. The floors are tiled, and the ceiling has painted cherubs holding eucalyptus branches. Yes, really. You're ushered into a changing room where velvet slippers and silk robes await. A servant hands you a platter of candied walnuts and something that might be elk jerky. This isn't a bathhouse, it's a temple to luxurious sweat. The Tsar's cousin isn't present. He's away on spiritual retreat. Read he ate some mushrooms and disappeared into the forest for 2 weeks. But his wife is Lady Sophia, pale, aloof, wrapped in a fur shawl and sipping kvass from a gold cup. "You're the village banya boy," she says, scanning you like an auction item. You nod. "What else does one say?" "Good," she says. "We require a steam for the goats." You blink. "Goats?" "Yes, apparently they have names Anastasia and Margarita, and are considered too precious to be chilled. They've been bathed in lavender steam since infancy. You're to supervise their banya session. The goat handler leads you to a tiled chamber warmer than the core of the earth, where the 2 goats rest on satin-lined mats. This historians don't talk about, but it happened. Some nobles in the 18th century did indeed extend the banya treatment to pets. Dogs, cats, even livestock were believed to benefit from the cleansing of vapors. One eccentric baron was rumored to host raccoon steam parties. Raccoons. Quirky, absolutely, but in the context of banya culture, not surprising. If steam cures all, why not the animals? You gently wave the birch switch near Margarita's ears. She bleats contentedly. You offer Anastasia a cube of salted beet. She sniffs it and sighs. Mission accomplished. Lady Sophia observes from a curtained alcove, murmuring approval. They seem emotionally balanced today, she says. The steam agrees with them. She then invites you to join her for a proper noble session, no goats involved. This banya is different. Instead of wooden planks, there are marble benches. Instead of buckets, there are ornate samovars pumping herbal infusions directly into the steam system. There's even music, a lone balalaika player hidden behind a velvet screen plucking slow, dreamy notes that vibrate through your ribs. The steam, though, it's the same. Hot, humid, holy. You and Lady Sophia sit in silence. Occasionally she comments on the texture of the air or the symbolic meaning of sweat. I believe we sweat our pasts, she says. Every drop is a failed romance or a missed opportunity or a bad haircut. We leave it behind. We become newer. You nod. It makes sense. Everything makes sense in the steam. She asks if you've ever wept in a banya. You admit you've come close. She nods. Then you haven't truly begun. Historians still argue whether the noble banya was more spectacle than therapy, more status than substance. But in moments like this, sitting side by side with a woman who owns 9 tea sets for different moods, you realize the belief was the same. Rich or poor, human or goat, everyone came here to be undone and rebuilt. As the session ends, she rises gracefully, dabs her forehead with a rose-water cloth and says, "Tell your village they've sent us a master." You leave the palace banya with a gift basket. Dried herbs, 2 soaps shaped like swans, and a pouch of gooseberry salt. You descend the hill in the sleigh wind, slicing your cheeks, mind still warm. Back in the village, the banya looks small again, humble, a little charred around the edges, but it calls to you like home. Because in the end, the Tsar's marble doesn't make the heat better. The steam is the same, always. The snow squeaks beneath your boots as you return to the village, still hugging the gooseberry salt pouch like it contains state secrets. You're greeted like a returning war hero, not because of the noble woman's praise, but because you steamed goats. That kind of story has legs around here. There's no rest waiting. As soon as you wipe the frost from your eyebrows, someone pulls you aside. A woman's gone into labor. And yes, you guessed it. Into the banya she goes. Because in 18th century Russia, where superstition and survival had a long-term domestic partnership, the banya wasn't just a bathhouse, it was a birthing suite, a sick ward, a recovery room, and sometimes even a coffin prep station. You're about to witness all of that, possibly within a single afternoon. You duck back inside the bathhouse. The fire's been stoked extra hot. The benches have been scrubbed. A pot of herbal broth steams gently in the corner. The air smells of sweat and mint, with just a hint of pending chaos. Maria, the expectant mother, is perched on the middle bench, clutching a damp towel, and breathing like she's trying not to swear in front of a priest. Her mother is pacing like she's wearing grooves into the floor. Her husband has been ordered outside to chop something, though no one's told him what. Steam rises thickly around them, the heat creating a soft, glowy cocoon. You sit down quietly, a witness, now not a participant. This isn't new. Banyas have long been used for childbirth. Why? Well, they were the cleanest place available. The steam helped prevent infection. The warmth soothed pain, and the isolation gave privacy. Also, many believed that spirits were gentler inside banyas, more willing to protect new life. A local midwife arrives, Elena, round and fierce with forearms like cured hams, and the confidence of someone who's helped deliver more babies than some towns have people. "Boil more stones," she barks. "Bring fresh birch," Maria cries out. You suddenly realize how small the room feels. Elena rubs a mixture of salt and pine resin into her own hands, then gently places them on Maria's belly. She begins whispering a chant, something about strong roots and easy harvests. The rhythm of it blends with the hiss of the steam. Quirky banya fact: midwives sometimes swore by steam-spoken lullabies. It was believed that the baby would hear them even in the womb, and that the right song could guide the child's soul safely into the world. Outside, the snow falls harder. Inside, time folds in on itself. Maria groans, breath catching in her throat. Elena leans in, eyes fierce. Now. And just like that, life emerges in the hottest room in town. A new cry pierces the steam, thin, sharp, impossibly loud. It bounces off the walls and into your chest. Maria sobs. Her mother weeps. The baby, slick and furious, is wrapped in a towel that smells faintly of juniper and laundry soap. The midwife coos. Strong lungs, she says. Banya born. The villagers say Banya born children are hardier, more spirited. They grow faster, laugh louder, and rarely fall ill. Whether or not that's true, you can see in Maria's exhausted smile that the belief alone gives it power. But the Banya's duties don't stop there. A few hours later, as the steam softens and the light dims, an old man is carried in on a stretcher. He's pale, breathing shallowly, eyes closed. His name is Yefim, 92, maybe more. No one's sure anymore. He's here for his final steam. There's no panic, only reverence. They lay him on the lowest bench, swaddle him in towels, and begin ladling gentle steam into the air. One woman hums softly. A man kneels at Yefim's feet and presses warm stones to his soles. This, too, is tradition. Many Russians believe the soul could leave more peacefully in a banya, that the warmth would ease its exit, that the spirits already present would guide it onward. Even now, historians find references to death sweats, where the dying were steamed clean, heart and body, before they moved on. Yefim's breath slows, his eyes flutter. He doesn't speak, but there's peace in his face, a kind of deep, glowing stillness, and then quiet. No fanfare, no last words, just the sigh of steam, the creak of wood, and the heavy weight of finality. He is washed, wrapped, and prepared right there in the same place the baby was born. The circle complete in one sacred, sweaty room. You step outside, reeling from it all. The snow has stopped. The clouds have cracked slightly, letting in a hint of blue. You realize with a shiver that this banya is more than a bathhouse. It's a living book, a cradle, a grave, a womb of warmth in a world that wants you frozen. A place where generations breathe in the same air and believe deeply that heat can heal. And you're not sure if it's the steam or something older in the wood, but for a second you feel it too, something holy. You don't speak for a while after that. No one does. The silence following a birth is loud. The silence following a death is louder, but the banya doesn't stop breathing. It exhales gently now, wood crackling walls damp with memory. You sit on the edge of a bench, fingers tracing faint lines in the grain as if hoping to read the stories of those who came before. Then through the haze comes the shuffling sound of bare feet and clinking charms. A figure in a threadbare robe enters hood, drawn beard braided with beads and eyes like storm glass. His name, no one seems quite sure. Some call him the Saint of Sweat. Others just whisper and step aside. He carries nothing but a cloth satchel and a hand-carved staff, and a smell smoke-crushed sage and pine resin. "May I sit?" he asks no one in particular. You nod, because what else do you do when a banya mystic asks to join your row? He lowers himself carefully onto the bench, his bones popping like firewood. He closes his eyes, and then he begins to steam. He doesn't move, doesn't chant, doesn't blink, just breathes long, even inhales that seem to stretch across the room, and the temperature begins to rise as though the banya itself is responding to his presence. Someone hands him a venik, and he holds it loosely in his lap like a ceremonial object. After a long pause, he speaks. The body has 7 doors. Steam knocks on all of them. You tilt your head. Sometimes it kicks, he adds. The others chuckle nervously. He's unpredictable. famous for fasting between steam sessions. He claims visions come only after you've sweated away every trace of the outside world, salt, sin, and second thoughts. He once went 5 days in a banya, drinking nothing but snowmelt and muttering to invisible grandmothers. Quirky legend. They say he once exorcised a bad harvest by steaming inside a hollowed-out pumpkin while chanting the names of forgotten saints. The crop survived. Coincidence maybe, or maybe gourds are more powerful than we think. He opens his eyes now and turns to you. Have you seen them yet? He asks. You hesitate. Seen what? The watchers, he whispers. The steam-bound ones. The spirits of heat and memory. Right. Those. Turns out in some corners of Russia people believed banyas were inhabited, not just by ancestral spirits but by actual entities made of heat. Wisps of conscious vapor that remembered everything you said, thought, or feared while sweating. They weren't malevolent, but they were particular. You had to treat the banya like a guest, offer salt, speak kindly, never ever curse inside. Historians still argue whether this belief came from early animist traditions or sheer exhaustion-induced hallucinations. But accounts of Bannack spirits, hairy, soot-covered, sauna-residing beings go back centuries. They could bless or burn you, depending on how well you scrubbed your soul. The Saint of Sweat leans closer. They like you, he says. You're not sure whether to thank him or flee. He stands, slowly creaking like a cathedral, and begins a ritual. He pours water not on the stones, but gently onto the floorboards. Steam rises from below. A deeper heat. He draws a spiral with his toe, hums a low droning note that makes your ribs vibrate. And then from a corner of the banya, someone gasps. Not from pain, but awe. There's a figure, not flesh, not shadow, just the impression of movement in the thickest part of the steam. It passes behind a pillar, then fades. You stare, you blink, you don't speak, and neither does anyone else. The Saint of Sweat simply smiles. They're always here, he says. You only notice when you stop pretending to understand. Then he bows to the stove, to the benches, to the coals, and to you. I'll return when the rivers thaw, he says. And with that, he walks out into the snow barefoot, leaving a trail of steam footprints behind him that vanish before they reach the door. No one speaks for a full minute. Then someone mutters, he used to be a cobbler. You nod. Of course he did. That's the thing about the banya. It strips titles and layers. It's where cobblers become saints, where mystics smell faintly of smoked pine, and where even the skeptical learn to respect the unseen. You settle back onto the bench, mind still buzzing. Whether that was a ghost, a heat mirage, or just your blood sugar collapsing is irrelevant, because in here everything has meaning, even the things you can't explain, especially those. You lie back, legs outstretched, eyes closed, and feel the warmth press gently into your chest, like an ancient, sweaty hug. It would be a perfect nap too, if not for the sudden clank of a metal bucket slamming into the floor. You sit up, startled. 3 men have entered, each with that twitchy posture that says something's about to go terribly, hilariously wrong. They're wrapped in towels, muscles flexed to maximum casual intimidation, and behind them a suspiciously large sack of potatoes and a bottle of vodka the size of a toddler. You've met them before. Cousins. Known for 2 things, losing arguments and inventing new ways to settle them. Today they've chosen the most Russian method possible, a banya duel. You don't know the details yet, you never do. These things have rules, like jazz, mostly improvised and occasionally involving mild burns. But the core premise is always the same: who can outlast the other in ridiculous, shirtless discomfort. The banya heats up. Not just temperature-wise, the energy shifts. The cousins eye each other like competitive lobsters. One of them, Victor, maybe climbs to the highest bench, grabs a venik and begins whipping himself. Hard. dramatic, like he's trying to drive out demons and make them jealous. The other cousin Boris responds by guzzling half the vodka and sitting directly in front of the furnace, arms crossed. "Steam doesn't scare me," he says. "I am steam," Victor replies. Everyone collectively groans. Historians still argue whether these duels were real traditions or just drunken absurdities turned into folk stories. Some say Cossacks once settled feuds this way, sweat till surrender, no blades involved. Others think it was just an excuse to show off how much heat you could handle without crying. Quirky tidbit. In one 18th century account, two rivals stayed in a banya so long that bystanders assumed they'd died. Turned out they were just asleep, naked, pruned, and proudly unconscious. You become the unofficial referee. Round 1, heat endurance. The coals are loaded. Steam billows. The room transforms into a swamp that has personal grievances. The cousins barely flinch, though Boris starts humming a war song, and Victor appears to be whispering insults to the stove. Round 2, philosophical insults. Yes, apparently that's a thing. Victor begins. "Your thoughts are as shallow as a half-filled birch bucket." Boris replies, "Your steam lacks spirit, like cabbage soup without cabbage. You have to bite your lip to keep from laughing." The duel isn't just physical, it's theatrical. The steam wraps around every word, turning them into hot daggers of passive aggression. Round 3, Venic artistry. They each select a new switch oak for Boris, linden for Victor, and take turns performing dramatic flourishes, whipping the air, the benches themselves. At one point, Boris balances his Venic on his forehead. Victor counters by making steam smoke rings with a damp towel. The crowd, now including half the village and a curious chicken, applauds politely. A goat bleats judgmentally from outside. Eventually, as it always does, the duel reaches its natural conclusion, not in victory but in mutual collapse. They slide off their benches like puddings, faces flushed, egos intact. Boris mumbles something about honor being a temperature, and Victor salutes the stove before passing out in a pile of birch leaves. You, the reluctant witness, are handed a ladle. It's tradition. The winner, or in this case the survivor, gets to pour the final steam. You walk to the stones, tip the water, and watch the room erupt in a final hiss of approval. The duel is over, and no one remembers who started it. That's the magic of the banya. It boils everything down: grudges, rivalries, philosophy, even names. In here, you're not your job, your past, your paycheck. You're just meat and breath, trying not to faint while whispering about cabbage soup. The cousins are revived with pickled cucumbers and dry socks. They toast each other with what's left of the vodka and declare it a draw. Outside, the sun's setting. A soft orange light filters through the snow-dusted windows. You stretch your limbs loose, lazy, humming with residual heat. A child asks you what just happened. A sacred ritual, you say straight-faced. They nod wide-eyed like you've just described an ancient rite involving dragons and sauna gods. And maybe you have. Because in a place where people battle with birch branches and debate soul-cleansing techniques over beet tea, everything feels mythic. Even two cousins yelling about soup. You're half asleep on the lowest bench, skin still buzzing from the duel, and mind soft as bread dough when you hear giggles. Not the usual low chuckles of old men discussing pickled herring recipes. No, this is higher-pitched teasing, flirtatious. You crack one eye open. The banya has been taken over. Not by mystics or duelists or goat whisperers, but by the village's younger crowd. Teenagers, newlyweds, wide-eyed romantics, and nervous suitors, all swept into what can only be described as courtship banya night. Yes, that's a thing. You sit up slowly, towel secured, trying to look both present and invisible. Because this is not your usual banya ritual. This is steam-fueled matchmaking. There's music now, someone plucking a balalaika in the predbanik. Candles flicker in makeshift lanterns. Birch branches have been replaced with linden and rose petals, and the air smells faintly of wildflower oil. If it weren't for the sweat and semi-nudity, you'd think it was a very avant-garde wedding. Historians still puzzle over these rituals. Some sources suggest certain villages hosted monthly banya events for young singles, structured sweaty opportunities to assess good health and temperament. Others think it was more spontaneous teens stealing the late-night slot and claiming it was for emotional balance. Whatever the origin, the rules are unspoken but clear. Flirt, but don't faint. If you pass someone a Venic, it's either an insult or a marriage proposal, sometimes both. Don't sit on the top bench unless you're serious. You watch as a young man offers a birch switch to a girl with long braided hair. She raises an eyebrow. He hesitates. She accepts it and promptly whacks him on the arm, then giggles. It's on. They chase each other around the benches, laughing, slipping, colliding into a very old woman who seems absolutely delighted by all of it. Someone throws a towel like a lasso. A boy recites a love poem involving onions. You've stumbled into a folklore fever dream. And yes, this is exactly as chaotic as it sounds. You move to the outer chamber needing air and find two girls whispering while braiding each other's hair. Do you think he saw me sweating? One asks, like in a spiritual way. The other nods. You looked like a healing fire. You can't tell if they're being poetic or just delirious from the heat. Quirky detail. In some regions, it was believed that if two people shared a banya session without speaking for the entire time, they were spiritually aligned. It was called par silence. Some couples even included a joint banya visit in their wedding rites, sweating together before swearing loyalty. Back inside, things escalate. A couple is now performing what can only be called synchronized sweating. They lie side by side, matching each other's breaths, alternating wax with their respective venics. It's weirdly moving. Another pair has a full-on heat endurance contest. They sit at the highest point, arms crossed, refusing to blink. After 5 minutes, they look like beets, and one of them may be crying, but no one moves. You quietly root for them. Then the candlelight dims. A hush falls. Someone suggests the salt circle, a local tradition where people sit in a circle, toss a pinch of salt into the stove, and speak one thing they desire and one thing they fear. A steam-soaked group therapy, basically. You join because why not? Your turn comes. You toss your salt, watch it crackle, and murmur, "I want to stay warm. I fear being forgotten." No one reacts. They all nod solemnly. Someone else says, "I want true love." Pause. "I fear that it snores." Another whispers, "I want to be kissed like a banya towel, aggressively, and always near heat." You smile. The room glows. Not just with candles, but with honesty. Historians still argue how real these steam-bound connections were, but anyone who's spent time sweating next to someone they fancy knows vulnerability strips faster than any towel. You see people at their most flushed, most honest. No armor, no makeup, just sweat and heartbeat and breath. The ritual ends with laughter, some shy hugs, and a few lingering glances that suggest tonight's going to be talked about for generations. You step outside again, steam trailing off your shoulders, and stare at the stars peeking through the snow clouds. Somewhere behind you, a girl is whispering, "Do you think he'll ask to steam again?" And just like that, the night feels impossibly young. In the banya, even love is humid. You're awakened the next morning not by roosters, but by shouting. Not panicked shouting, more like competitive yelling, the kind that usually precedes either a wrestling match or a very strange wedding. You rub your eyes, still sore from yesterday's courtship rituals, and peek outside the banya. It's happening. The Cossacks have arrived. They come riding into the village like wind-chapped thunder fur hats, tilted mustaches curled with malicious intent, and eyes that glitter with mischief. There's laughter, cursing, and the distinct sound of someone slapping raw meat against a saddle for luck. You already know what they want. You've heard the rumors. You just hoped they weren't all true. They're here to duel. In the banya. Again. But this time it's not for love or goats or philosophical soup insults. It's for honor, which in Cossack terms usually means someone accused someone else of stealing a sheep, a song, or a particularly nice hat. There are two of them, Ivan and Kolya, both built like furniture, both scowling. They're stripping down to their breeches while exchanging barbs sharp enough to shave birch bark. "I'll steam the coward out of you," Kolya growls. Ivan spits. "You can barely steam a dumpling." And with that, the challenge is declared. You once again are volunteered to referee, because apparently you have the face of someone who looks responsible around boiling water. The rest of the village gathers outside, cheering, betting pickled vegetables and hand-sewn mittens on the outcome. This is tradition after all. Cossack sauna duels. Equal parts spectacle, self-immolation, and deeply questionable logic. Inside the furnace roars. Water hits the stones with an almost theatrical hiss. The banya is filled with a fog so thick you could slice it and serve it with bread. The rules surprisingly clear: no leaving the top bench, no fainting without style, no insulting someone's grandmother unless she's present and consents. The duel begins. Kolya takes the offensive, grabbing a venik and slapping himself across the chest with the force of a falling bookshelf. He roars. Steam flares. A child outside faints. Ivan counters by doing a full birch flip, a dangerous maneuver involving two veniks and one very slippery bench. He sticks the landing, barely. They trade steam insults between rounds of heat. Your sweat smells of cowardice. Your ancestors probably bathed in lukewarm. You call that steam? My aunt Samovar had more par. They hurl ladles of water, then sit red-faced and twitching, refusing to blink. You caught in the middle wonder if there's a more peaceful society somewhere that settles arguments with chess or interpretive dance. Historians still argue if these steam duels were more ritual than combat. In some areas, banya contests were formalized part of village festivals. In others, they were spontaneous acts of pure, fevered masculinity. But one thing's for sure, pride ran hotter than the coals. Quirky tidbit. One folk record tells of a duel where both men passed out and had to be dragged out by their beards. The village declared it a draw and honored them with a soup made entirely of onions and regret. Back in your reality, Ivan starts singing an old war tune. Kolya joins in. Then, to everyone's confusion, they harmonize. It's haunting, beautiful. You're not sure if this is part of the duel or just two men slowly merging with the steam. Then silence. You lean in, unsure who has won, when Ivan suddenly yells, "Let's end this like men." Kolya nods solemnly, and they embrace, like sweaty, exhausted bear cubs who have been cooked to medium well and are now marinated in mutual respect. Everyone outside erupts in applause. There is no winner, or maybe everyone wins, because once again the banya has taken anger, pride, and stubborn Cossack energy and melted it into something soft, silly, and vaguely tender. The two men stumble out into the snow, steam still rising from their bodies like they've emerged from legend. A child offers them bread. A woman throws a towel. Someone plays a sad accordion. You smile. Because only in Russia, only in this village, could you find a bathhouse so powerful it turns feuds into folk songs. As the crowd disperses and the banya cools slightly, you start cleaning the benches. The veniks are wilted. The floorboards creak with satisfaction. You look up at the stones and swear you hear them sigh. And maybe, just maybe you do. Because this isn't just a room. It's a crucible, a confessional, a stage. A courtroom with no lawyers, no weapons, only heat, sweat, and the deep, ridiculous need to outlast your opponent with your pores. And here, that's justice. Night falls thick and blue over the village, wrapping every roof and tree in velvet shadows. The snow crunches quieter now, like it too is trying to listen. Inside the banya, the coals glow low and red like the last thoughts before sleep. You think the day is done, that surely the steaming, the birthing, the dueling, and the flirting have tapped the village dry. You're wrong, because this is seance night. You hear them before you see them, 5 or 6 figures whispering as they gather in the snow, each carrying something odd. A doll's foot, a carved spoon, a single dried mushroom. One of them clutches a worn copy of a prayer book. Another carries a flute that appears to be missing several crucial holes. They file into the banya without a word. These are the village's spirit summoners. Not witches, they insist. Not fortune tellers. Just curious citizens who believe that steam is the best medium for messages from the beyond. Tonight's goal: speak to someone dead. Or failing that, get very sweaty and make up a comforting story. You are once again invited to witness, because as one of them puts it, you have excellent aura absorption. You don't know what that means. You nod anyway. The banya is prepared in silence. No jokes, no venic slapping, just ritual. Stones are arranged in a spiral. The coals are stoked until they shimmer like a dragon's yawn. Water is ladled not onto the stones, but around them, so the spirits can step through without flinching. Historians still argue over these spiritual steam sessions. Some say they were holdovers from pre-Christian shamanic rites. Others believe they were just creative therapy sessions disguised as folk religion. Either way, they happened. Documented in letters, journals, and the occasional exasperated priest's notes. The leader tonight is Galina, sharp-nosed, sharp-tongued, and wearing a necklace made of buttons and teeth. She lights a candle with a match that hisses louder than the steam. Everyone sits in a circle, towel wrapped in serious. She begins. Tonight we call to Aunt Masha. You blink. Your Aunt Masha numb. A different one. Apparently every village has at least 6. They call out names into the haze. Masha, if you hear us, come close. Masha, we offer steam and salt. Masha, we fixed the roof you hated. Then silence. The heat thickens. You begin to sweat again, but this time the sensation is different. Slower, denser, like the air is watching you. The candle flickers. Someone gasps. From the far side of the banya, in the densest curl of steam, comes a voice. Not a real voice, more like a shift, a presence. The hairs on your arms stand straight. One woman starts crying. Another begins whispering her sins, cheating at chess, hiding potatoes, secretly preferring Polish dumplings. Quirky belief. It's said that if the steam curls in a circle above the stones, it means a spirit is present. If it splits into 2 strands, they're angry. If it forms the shape of a goose, well, no one's quite sure, but it's very bad. The steam tonight doesn't curl, it hovers. You don't see a face, you don't hear words. But something changes in the room, a kind of electric stillness. A pause that feels full. And then as suddenly as it came, it's gone. The candle flares, then dies. Galina smiles. She came, she says. She left. She seemed satisfied. Everyone breathes again. The spell breaks. People start murmuring thanks to the stove. Someone passes around slices of honey cake and pickled radish. You eat both without question. You ask what happens if no spirit ever comes. Galina shrugs. Then we pretend. She winks. Either way, we feel better after. You believe her. Because whether or not you heard Aunt Masha tonight, whether or not any spirit passed through the birch-scented fog, something did happen. You sat in silence. You listened. You let the steam remind you that time is soft and memory lives in warm air. The group leaves quietly, stepping into the snow like monks after midnight prayers. You stay behind for just a moment, watching the last of the steam curl upward and vanish into the beams. There's something sacred in that disappearing. A final whisper or a sigh. Either way, the banya holds it. You stay in the banya long after the others have left. Just you, the hiss of the cooling stones, and the slow, rhythmic drip of condensation plinking off the rafters. It's the quietest it's been all day, and somehow that silence feels loud, like the walls are holding their breath. You lie back on the bench, muscles slack, skin warm and loose as melted wax. Your towel is half a memory now, clinging to you out of habit. Your breath comes slow and heavy. Each inhale tastes like pine smoke, salt, and stories. You close your eyes. You think about all that's happened in this little wooden temple. You've seen babies born and old men pass on, watched duels rage and crushes blossom, heard whispers from ghosts, or maybe just the walls. And through it all, the steam has never stopped. It's always been here, rising, curling, softening the edges of everything it touches. Outside, the night has wrapped the village in ink. Snow falls like ashes, now soft and steady. A distant owl calls once, then holds its tongue. Inside, the banya glows gently, like an ember too stubborn to die. You shift slightly and smile, because you've started to understand. This place isn't about washing, it's about witnessing. The birch branches aren't just for circulation, they're for connection. The rituals, the chanting, the onion foot remedies, it's all part of something deeper. A shared agreement that pain can be sweated out, that warmth can be enough, that even if you can't fix what's broken, you can sit beside it, let the heat loosen its knots, and wait for it to soften. You glance at the stove, now more friend than furnace. You whisper a quiet thank you, and you mean it. Whether there are spirits in here or not, it feels right to leave a bit of respect behind. You pour one last ladle over the stones. A soft hiss, a gentle puff of steam, and then stillness. Your eyes flutter shut, and there it is. Peace, not dramatic or divine, but thick, quiet, earned. The coals fade into ash. The wood creaks like it's settling in for a long winter nap. Outside, the snow continues to fall soft as breath, steady as time. It coats the rooftops, curls into windowsills, and muffles every sound until the whole world feels padded in wool. Inside, you lie still, wrapped in the gentle hum of post-steam calm. Your pulse has slowed. Your thoughts have stretched out like cats in sunbeams. There's no hurry anymore, no need for words, just warmth and breath. Your skin tingles faintly, not from heat anymore, but memory. The laughter, the duels, the goats, the whispered names drifting through the steam. You let them all pass through you like smoke. You don't hold them, you just let them float. You hear someone in the distance, perhaps a door closing, perhaps just the wind. It doesn't matter. Nothing urgent lives here, not tonight. You curl onto your side. The bench is hard, but you've never felt more supported. The last wisps of steam wrap around your shoulders like a blanket knit from every story this village has ever told. And somewhere in the deepest folds of your sleepy mind, you think, I am cleansed. I am softened. I am steeped like a soul in tea. And with that thought, you drift gently toward sleep. The coals glow one last time, then fade. Good night.